Assalamualaikum and hello again. Welcome back to my class. Today I'm going to discuss about decision making and creativity. In previous chapter, I already discussed about performance practices and how employees should be rewarded and types of rewards and so on. So now we're talking about how employee can make the decisions. So we talk about the performance, how an employee being compensated. So employee should know how to manage themselves. Yeah? When talk about the empowerment, the autonomy, and all this motivation, so it also involves decision making, because when they needs to do some because when they have the empowerment, the autonomy to do certain things, to make decisions, so they should understand how to make good decisions and how to use their creativity in making decisions. So when we talk about decision making, we came into rational choice decision making. What is a rational choice decision making? Well, for example, you wanted to do your MBA here in USM. Of course, before you reach to the decision, you have to, so definitely you have to go through certain process, like maybe selecting the list of universities that get some information from your friends. Maybe you try to compare the tuition fees, then try to think about the time that you have, and of course there are certain other issues that you will came across that you will take into consideration. First, you will choose which is the best universities, and those would have a affordable tuition fees, and then only you will make the decisions. So this rational choice decision making process, there are 6 of them. I'm not sure how, whether you go through all the 6 process or you skip any of the process, but rational choice, of course, I think the main thing we should talk about to identify the problems or any opportunity. It's like, for example, like you identify whether which universities offers the best course, whether it is suitable for you or not, and then you choose. Yeah, then after that you will choose the best among the universities, and then of course there are several other things that you need to see, and so on, and then you after that you will select which is the best, and then you will of course apply, and once you get it, and whether you like it or not, so whatever decisions that you make, maybe it is best to go through this process to understand, yeah, the problem itself. And how about you, how you doing it, how you make your decisions? You can share with me anytime. You can just share how you do it in the e-learning. You can upload your answer anytime you're free. Then, and when it comes to identifying the problem, of course there's a lot of challenge that you have to go through, and here they said there are about 5 identification challenges. First, we talk about the solution focused problems. Well, because it is from the, we only looking from the past success, where we feel, oh, since in previous in the previous people tend to use this way to solve the issues, why not we use it? And talk about sometime the leaders make the decision without asking all of you. I go through this also when they started to make when they started to have this e-procurement thing. They did not ask what the employee feel or think, or at least needs to have some feedback on the system, the trial run, but they start to go about it, and there's a lot of errors. When I highlighted to the head office about the e-procurement system, because I was responsible for that system in the branch, I told the person who initiate this, he said, hey, no one is complaining, why you're the only one complain? I said, because no one wants to try the system except for me, because I'm forced by manager to do it. Uh, because of this, it is difficult, and because they make the decision, they think that they know better. And also we talk about the stakeholder framing, talk about employees and supplier. Sometimes making the decision because we think, because what other employees will feel, other suppliers will, but without thinking that they should be done, they should be taken. But of course, we need to ask from their opinion itself. Then also sometimes our mental mind itself, we have our own ideas. We feel because we block ourselves to explore further. And that's why we can have this kind of challenge when we want to solve any issues, to whether we feel that the issue is important to be solved, because we feel that sometimes we just take things for granted. We feel that this is not a problem until it becomes, and until it becomes so huge, the problem becomes huge. And like what we are currently facing now, when they say this coronavirus thing, we say only few people got infected, for hundreds people, they few people, and they say, oh, never mind, no need to close the border and so on, no need to stop, not doing any proactive thing. Now everything is reactive. Now you see it becomes a pandemic. Well, I'm not going to that further, and I think you know what, and you know the whole thing. And how we can identify problem effectively, of course we need to don't be biased. Yeah, when we know we get the answer, try to be proactive rather than reactive. Yeah, and don't look like we have to look so decisive that this must be taken, because we have to go through some process. Yeah, and of course we need to discuss things among with other people, with the people that knows the issue, who are expert in this area. So don't just only depend on yourself, you need to get other people's opinion. Yeah, and you know what, the situation that we are having now. And what is the difference between rational choice assumptions and organizational behavior evidence? Of course, there are some differences when we talk about rational choice, because everything is clear, it's been given to you. But for from the OB perspective, that goals are ambiguous and always in conflict, because it talks about the subjectives. And rational design choice only just the objective part, something that can be seen but not into, but as compared to OB itself, I think it's so fluid, so abstract and subjective. And how you make, yeah, and have, and before taking any decision, you have to look into different issues, different aspect of certain things. Yeah, and what, and like for the, especially when you talk about this rational choice, all the decision makers only choose the alternative which is the highest payoff, means, oh, whichever give the highest money, give the highest profit with low cost, but they don't look into other things. But in here, for the OB, decision makers will choose which is the good enough, mean good for everyone, and not just about the money. So it's good means that it's in a win-win situation. So you can think about that. Yeah, about how the difference between the rational choice and the OB behavior. After that, and it comes into making decision, there's always some bias that comes in. You know, we are human beings, we are always follow our emotion, especially ladies. Well, I'm not blaming ladies, because you know, we are human beings. Sometimes the emotion side will also take into consideration, and not just the intuitive. Again, when you choose the university, of course, there are a lot of universities, I believe, also offering MBA. But of course, in the end, you will choose what is really close to your heart, what really attracts you. It's the matter of the heart over the mind. Yeah, but of course, there are some other bias that will come across when making decision. First, we talk about the anchoring and the adjustment. Sometimes when we know one thing, when we see one thing, he doesn't want to see the rest. Even many people say, okay, you should consider other, but you're still thinking about the first thing that you see. Like for example, like when I want to buy laptop, I saw Dell offers. It came into my mind. But after that, some of my colleagues also advised me, why not you look into other thing? Why not you look into other type? But still my mind only think about Dell. Yeah. So let's talk about the anchoring and the adjustment. What about the availability heuristics? Because it's how you estimate, yeah, how easy an event is recall. Like, for example, you've been through this situation before and decided that, oh, this is the best thing because of your previous experience, and because when you heard about what other people are saying previously, and you feel that it is easy to do like what other people have been doing, what have you been through before, rather than explore more. And then another bias talk about the representatives heuristics, yeah. And sometime when we talk about like now in my class, I have students who are full-time students and part-time students who are working and unworking. I cannot just simply say that all of my students are working adults. So because at the time we can make mistakes in doing some decision. Whatever decision I made, I must make sure who are my students, because some of you might be working, some of you might, if I want to give you a test for example, I have to make sure it does not clash with your working days. I have to make sure that everyone is happy with the date when it comes to your midterm. I hope you're happy with the date, yeah. Okay. And now talking about the maximization, because once we know one thing, we tend to overestimate the certain thing because we feel like that is the good enough. Why people are doing it? Because maybe this is what they know. That's the only thing that they know. Yeah? Because for them it's easy. Why should you think more? It's better for me to just use this because it proven that this thing is easy. It proven that it able to solve the problems. Yeah? Because especially in the organization when I work in the bank, yeah, because I have to make sure I have all the problems. We need to have the guideline, because if we follow the guideline, then we know it's easy for us. It will take a few minutes, maybe less than half an hour, to make a decision when it comes to this kind of error. But what happened when the errors happen that it but the guideline is not there in the SOP, so it will take a long time, yeah. So that's why people prefer when I was in the bank. Hopefully whatever mistake, then there should be some ways to do it. But if there's no way, of course have to go through many things, go through the head office, area office, and so on. So I don't want to discuss more about that because sometimes it costs me nightmare thinking about that happen. But thank God it's been solved at that point of time, but it takes more than one day, of course. So we talk about, like I mentioned before, about emotions and the intuition when making choice. Of course, we are, as a human being, whatever we do, we have to go through, we have to check whether whatever decision that you want to make must be good, reliable enough. I've been through, evaluate all other alternatives, getting opinions from others, yeah, and so on. When we talk about, yeah, when we talk about engage in scenario planning, it reminds me of this design thinking. Where see, design thinking is where you imagine the scenario. What will it be? Like we design it, put it in drawing or using toys. I remember when I went for this design thinking course conducted by one of the professor from GSB. It was 2 years ago, exactly 2 years ago. So he gave us his grandchildren choice to come up with the design and find the solution. It is kind of interesting because it let us to see what we should be doing and how we could look into certain problems, or how we empathize with others, yeah, and not just empathize, talk about how we sympathize others as well. We talk involved with also emotional intelligence to understand what will happen to others, if they have to go through this problem, this issue, this way of doing things, yeah. And when we talk about how we evaluate the decisions that we make, of course we need to see whether the decision that we take is good or not. And sometimes we always tend to say that, oh, we already made, because we justify that whatever decision made is always the best. But sometimes we never know, maybe it's not always the best thing, but hopefully whatever decision that you already made is a good decision. But what happen if it's not? Yeah, because we are human being, maybe we could take it as an experience for you to think further or discuss so that you won't repeat the same mistake. Yeah. So also in this we also talk about business intelligence. Well, I think you will be learning it in MIS or also in the business intelligence course, but I just want to just simply just touch on it because organization before making decision making, so now we can we in this IR 4.0 era can use business intelligence as a tools to make decision because they're using data mining, and text mining is one way to people for help the organization making decision whether to invest or not. We talk about artificial intelligence and a lot of this technology issues, yeah. But whatever decision that make, because nowadays a lot of especially those who have AI organization, if AI a big organization, maybe MNC, correct me if I'm wrong, that if they use AI, actually it helps them in making decision about business. Because it reminds me of one of the case studies by Harley Davidson, they're using AI and actually increase their sales almost 2,000% sale. So if you can check and Google up the case study of this what they call it, Harley Davidson using artificial intelligence. So in order to make a decision, good decision, what, so we should always need to get whether our decision, whatever decision that we make, we should always get some feedback and have to go through some evaluation process to make sure that the decision we make is okay. Yeah. So whatever it is, again, we should be learning from our mistake as well and learning from the people who are experienced. And now we talk about the creative process model. Yeah. How to become a creative people? Well, difficult to say how to become a creative or how a creative process model work. Some people who are born creative, like those inventors, maybe, they like things, they do trial and error. Like talk about this Nikola Tesla and Thomas Edison, because I came to know that a lot of ideas from Nikola Tesla were stolen by Thomas Edison. When I'm not sure whether he said correct. He tried how many times? Correct me for 99 time or 999 time. I'm not sure how many time he tried and he can come up with a mentor. Maybe of course, okay, I came to know that a lot of his ideas from Nikola Tesla. Okay, and now how to create, how a creative process model works. We talk about the preparation. I think it again reminds me of this design thinking, when you have to prepare to get the information, yeah, and then you have to, once you got all this information, you analyze, is what they call it, the incubation, yeah, and then always talk about analyze all the whole thing, the whole situation, and do the trial and error until eureka, illumination comes into the picture, or you suddenly you understand the whole thing, and suddenly you find the idea, you've been enlightened, and then decide to verify whether what you're doing it's correct or not. So I'm not sure with some of you, how creative are we in making decision. Sometimes, because we still need information, things does not come just like that at the snap of your fingertips, but of course you need to get some information, some analysis, then only you could come up with this process, with this idea. And this, I'm not sure whether any of us having this, but do I have imagination? As of course all of us, we have independent imaginations. And how we going to practice, how we going to live the dreams, imagination. And then of course they say we should, creative people should have cognitive and practical intelligence that is able to synthesize, analyze, and apply the ideas based from the evaluation, based from the information that you have, and of course the knowledge and the experience in your life, and whether you are persistent, you never afraid, yeah, to try again, to get up and rise like the phoenix rise from the ashes, yeah. And at the time, sometimes we need also support from the organization, like we call it the creative work environments, like like in Yahoo or Google's. You see the workplace is kind of interesting, so it could leads to creative mind. Of course, you need to have a good co-workers, and of course your leader should encourage. But some leaders might be say, why are you so, like kids? I mean, it's just for example, yeah. Why I need to have this and that? Because sometimes if you have a working environment which is cheerful, positive, it could lead to better productivity. It could lead to, could make your brains work and your heart, yeah. You will become more passionate. And what are the creativity activities? Talk about how we revisit the problem, or how we see the problem in a different way. Talk about playing, like I remember, and I told you just now about design thinking, using the toys of one of the professor's grandchildren to come up with a solution, and then get ideas from other people as well, and from other groups, and see, and how we focus on the certain things, yeah, how we focus on making the creative processes. So we got one about this design thinking, talk about the human rule, 4 rules, because human rules, like I say, involve with others, and we talk about empathize with others. Ambiguity rule, we should, they say, avoid problem identification too soon. Well, we talk about, of course we need to really sometime identify the problem itself, because according to design thinking we should come up with this thing like drawing, like a diagram, so that you understand the process, then only we can identify the problem. And sometimes need to redesign the rule, review the past solutions and the tangible rule, building the prototypes and learning and so on. But whatever it is, any decision making that an organization makes, have to make sure that to get employees to involve itself, because employees are doing it, employees are facing it, so they should be given a chance to voice out their opinion. But whatever it is, there should be contingencies in order for the employees to involve, to make sure that they have the knowledge, yeah, they know the risk, yeah, of the decision. I mean, whatever that, if you ever want to take the opinion from the employee, make sure you need to look in also, the organization should also look into the risk, whether what they're saying is correct or not. Because once, sometimes what is good when it involve with the employee, because they know what they're doing, yeah, because they are the one, especially the frontliners, and in the bank, I'm talking from the example of the bank, because they know what the customers want, what the peoples want, yeah. So that, because they are actually, the surveillance camera, I can say, like the surveillance camera, they captured the information, what the, because sometimes the customers will always tell the, if they're not okay, they don't see, like in the bank, they don't go and see straight with the managers, they will talk to the frontliners. So frontliners have all this information. But whatever it is, whether to involve with the frontliners taking the decision, the organization should look into, check the source, whether should go further investigate whether what the employee is saying is right or wrong, yeah. So in whatever it is, yeah, as a boss, we should also have to learn from our subordinate as well. Like for example, like now, even I'm in the academic world, at the time I have still to learn from my other colleagues also, those who are, or maybe the admin staff, they know how the process, what, for example, claiming and so on. There's a lot of things that how to go about it, certain rules that I still have to make the decision, mean I still have to get their opinion as well, yeah. and and all this, and on top of that, first we have to make sure that we have also all the knowledge that we should know. If we don't have, try to find out what to do. Don't just also only depend on others as well. We need to go and read up ourselves and check with those people from the higher authority before we make any decisions in the organization. Okay, that's all from me. So I hope you learned something from this class, from this lesson. So see you all again in the next lesson. Bye bye.